We're going to continue talking about the petrodollar, but wait until you see what China's doing that will affect your buying power. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Wealth Transfer. Last week we left off with the petrodollar, and it seemed a little rushed at the end there because I ran out of time. But I do want to go into explaining the United States side of what that petrodollar means. And folks, this is a doozy. Why? The petrodollar has given us our buying power. It's what gave us the ability to have the dollar valuation. Because everyone in the world, every country in the world needed crude oil, everyone needs energy. Energy is the center of the universe for the world. Being that the United States, I think brilliantly, orchestrated that every country needed an American dollar in order to do the crude oil transaction was brilliant. Needing not only physical dollars to buy the oil, but then with the profits, the oil Arabs would then buy U.S. treasuries, as well as put their profits in Western banks. Brilliant. Problem is, it's over. The Chinese have cemented a deal where they now have the Petroyuan backed by gold. And we left off last week showing how they have maritime control, which is control of all the shipping lanes out of the east to the west, as well as rails. It's called the Silk Road. And all I can say, folks, without getting too crazy or for you to go, so what, is if you understood that trade is the only thing that matters in this world next to financial control. Trade runs the world. And as China has secretly, which in the open, because we've been blinded to it as a nation, have taken over the trading world. They now control the routes. They are the largest trading nation, the largest exporting nation, and they're coming after the dollar now that Emperor Xi's involved. So I want to move right in, but this paragraph we're going to read again because this paragraph is everything that matters to our buying power. What's buying power is the ability of what you're holding in your wallet to buy something going forward in the future, especially. I had a phone call the other day with a lady who was convinced with a financial advisor to get out of silver and go into the stock market at these highs. And she was concerned for the future. And I'm really kind of torn because it's a veil issue. You either see the truth or you don't. But I said, that $200,000, did you have that in 9/11 time frame? She said, yes. So the markets crashed after that. She made the money back. So she's had $200,000 for the last 15 years, since 9/11, basically, 17 years. Yet the $200,000 doesn't buy the same. If all of you remembered back in 9/11, gasoline was $1. It was 80 cents a gallon. Food, bread, clothing, everything was a lot cheaper in 9/11. So her $200,000 wasn't even the same, even though on paper it looked like it was. And I said, ma'am, you know, just since 9/11, if you would have just stayed in physical silver in a vault versus currency in a brokerage firm in the bank or the stock market, I said, your $200,000 would be worth $800,000 right now. $800,000. And she's like, well, that doesn't make me feel good. I said, well, the point being, you're getting ready to do it again. You keep staying in the stock market. Everybody's excited about the stock market right now at all-time highs, off of the high. What is it going up? 25%? Maybe? 30% more? And you think that's important. Silver will blow away all gains in the stock market when this thing changes, as you're getting ready to see equities and capital is changing direction. So I felt really bad because she was 68 and knew that, you know, she's trying to preserve her future. And the preservation has always been in constitutional money. And yes, by the way, this is real. 999, it's a pound of silver for those who think it's not. But she is missing out on that opportunity. If anything, diversify, be half and half, protect yourself. Financial advisors have what my production assistant says. It's about the bell curve. They're just convincing you got to get in like a herd mentality, like sheep. And I think it's a devastating time frame right now. I believe we're in a secular bull market, but we're going into a cyclical bear, and that cyclical bear can hurt. And you have to be diversified in that same. So we got a great program here. I want to get in and finish up on the petrodollar, and then I want to show you why the Chinese are doing this and what they know the future holds and why they're angling not only for control and dominance, but financial rewards because they're getting away from the dollar. So let me go and bring this paragraph up. We read it before. A change in the default crude oil currency, which for decades has been the petrodollar, blessed the United States with global reserve currency status, would have monumental consequences for capital allocations and trade flows. It controlled the world, not to mention the geopolitics. Well, as Reuters recently noted, a shift in just a small part of global oil trade into the yuan is potentially huge. Oil is the world's most traded commodity, and with an annual trade value of around $14 trillion. Currently, virtually all global crude oil trade is in dollars, being the basis of the U.S. dominance hegemony in the world economy. Now, folks, that is the crux of what we're talking about here. They know the change has happened. Take a look again at this. This is the first day the Chinese yuan, Petroyuan contract out of Shanghai came on live. Because their oil contracts backed up by yuan, which a lot of people are like, so what? I can't trust yuan, just like they can't trust a paper dollar. But the yuan is backed by gold if you want it. Look at the first day volume on this chart here, Petro-Yuan oil futures volume versus the American Brent crude. The Americans in the blue and the Chinese is in the red. That is a staggering chart, folks, of confidence that the world has. And here's the biggest thing I can possibly outline. If you notice in the bubble, if not, I'm going to read it. We will no longer pay for oil imports with a dollar, says the Chinese. This just happened a few weeks ago. We will only use our own currency, the yuan. Emperor Z, April 2018. I can't say enough of how crucial that statement is. We went to war in Iraq because Saddam said he was selling oil for euros. We have gone against the nations who tried to buck the petrodollar, and now not only did the Chinese come out with their own petro-yuan, not only are they the ones now coziest to the Saudi Arabians, you're going to be surprised, they built the largest mega-billion-dollar refinery in the world in Saudi Arabia, and the Chinese helped finance it. Now they have a futures oil contract that global traders trust more than the dollar because it's actually backed by gold. In America, we're backing ours by these derivatives, these fake manipulated paper contracts that the world struggles to see through. They know. Back in the day, it was great. It worked. Back in the day, the music was alive and everybody was happy. But they see the social fabric tearing apart at our nation. And they know that the stack is against President Trump, who is the only one, I don't care what you think personally, the only one in this nation that has our best interest for breaking down this socialistic, communistic destruction that's coming to our country. And I don't think he's going to be enough to pull it off. I just think there's too much against him. But this is really huge. And see, the Chinese see it, folks. They see it. And that is why the future buying power of our money will not be what you think. And if you're not diversified, you're going to regret that. So if anything, I got to take a quick break. We're going to dive right back in. See you in a minute.
Buying power. What does it mean to you and your family? Have you noticed the prices of everything we buy are rising? Goods and services are becoming more expensive, and the money you work so hard for buys less and less and less. If you saved $250,000 in cash in the 1960s, that cash today would be worth approximately the same, $250,000. Yet does it have the same buying power today? No, not even close. Now take that same $250,000 from the 60s saved in silver instead of cash. Today, it would be worth a staggering $4.25 million. Now that's buying power. Protect and preserve your buying power now by rolling over a portion of your IRA into a silver IRA. Use the power of constitutional money silver to protect your standard of living in retirement and maintain the quality of life you are hoping for. The paper dollar you are saving has tremendous challenges ahead, so don't delay. Call Cornerstone Asset Metals now at 888-747-3309. Don't give away your hard-earned savings any longer. Be diversified. Get protected today.
Welcome back. Now, the reason I want to stay on that one more time with this Petroyuan, the Chinese came out and announced that they will no longer pay for oil in the dollar, that they will use their own currency. I can't tell you how enormous that is, because it minimizes the dollar impact when we've got trillions in debt, way more than any nation in history. And if we put it in a category, we're broke. So you got to keep that in perspective. But why they have the confidence to launch this out of Shanghai was because their dominance of the Silk Road route, which is rails, trucking, maritime shipping, and ownership of the ports. They even bought one of the big ports in Greece, which allowed them to ship the goods and services, as you can see, from China all the way across to the West, giving them a perfect control of the trade routes. And as we showed last week, how they're flexing their muscle in the South China region, telling Vietnam what they can do, telling everyone else territorially what they can do. The Chinese control the Eastern Rim. We have Japan, the Philippines, and Taiwan, but China made it very clear, and Emperor Xi made it very clear that Taiwan is not going to be given up, that the Chinese own it, and I guarantee that's a proxy war in the future, but the Chinese are going to claim that sooner or later. And it was, by treaty, Americans' territory. They know they're ceding the dominance from the Eastern Rim over. Now, why does that matter to us? We've been living this American dream because we controlled the global trade and finance. We controlled the global condition through our military. Well, now China's in control and moving increasingly more so over 2/3 of the world's population. Think about that. 2/3. Our allies are Europe, North American regions, and a little bit in the southeastern. That's it. Our allies are small. China controls the big ones, or is in relationship with Russia, the Middle East, the African regions, India. So think about that. Now, what is important to understand is China's making the move slowly, eloquently. But now that Emperor Xi is emperor, he is going at the heart of the petrodollar with the Petroyuan backed by gold. And it will definitely impact this dollar, this paper Federal Reserve note, to its buying power. We are never going down. I know there's people saying we're in a deflation. We're in a deflation and an inflation. There's some great things trying to take place in our nation, but it's a little too late. Although I have confidence if he could, without all of his own party and the rest against him, President Trump has some great ideas for trade. He really is a pretty brilliant negotiator. Unfortunately, the deep state is just too much, I think, and we're going to find out. But what does China know? Why are they feeling that aggressiveness that now with Russia and Iran is the time to take down the dollar? What are they looking at besides the American laziness of our culture, by the American division in our social fabric? What are they looking at? They're looking at this: total global credit market debt and owed. Now this is global, but look at the difference here. The bottom line is purple. That is the world GDP, how much they're producing globally, annually. The red is a percentage of the GDP, including all debt levels, household, corporate, and government. The blue is in dollars, in the trillions, $180 trillion, well over 300% of debt in the world to the global GDP. Now, what I want you to look at when you're looking at this is the pink shaded area and to the top of the blue, from the purple to the top blue. Folks, look at how it went exponential. This is what I want you to focus on. See how it goes exponential up? That's the problem. The world has expanded a massive amount. We're talking literally 150 trillion in debt in the last 8 years. That is not sustainable. That is called parabolic. It's blowing up. And it's blowing up, and it could platform and then stay and then build another level, maybe people will think. But folks, when you blow up to parabolic levels at that extreme, there has to be a corrective measure to clean out the corruption, the fog, and the dirt, if you could say. China sees this in the world. The difference is they're better off than we are. They're kind of newer, you could say, than we are. And they don't have the obligations to the extent we do because they're communists. They'll just kill you. They'll eliminate their culture. They'll shape things around. They'll make people suffer and starve in the streets. They don't care. Yet our country is spending $1 trillion on welfare, and we continue. They know we are in debt. The buying power you think that has been lost over the last 10 years on this, wait till you see what's coming. That's why I have concern for people, because they're focusing on the stock market when if they were in this all along since 9/11, you're superior, better off in buying power as a hedge of savings. They know this. The Chinese know this is coming. They know America's challenged because we're broke. And now that we've done tax cuts in extreme ways, brilliant idea, but the economy has to really get moving in order to bring in the additional revenue to offset the taxes that are lost. So we're in a pretty precarious spot. But if you've noticed, which most of you probably didn't catch, the tax cuts are not permanent. They're sunset. So they expire in the future. So you better take advantage of it now, because in the future it expires and then the rates go back up. So that's why they're not too concerned. This is another reason why the Chinese are on board. Now, I'm showing you this. Many people would think you're always biased to one end, but I am only because I see the big picture. And I do know, being that I come from the financial world, multiple financial licenses, more than every one of your financial advisors, because I've gone into commodities, that I've seen it. And I know the data on all sides. Of course you can make money in these paper worlds. I'm talking about having a hedge, but in the end, silver has always been one of the best performing assets you can hold as a diversification, and it happens to be our constitutional money and the money of the Bible. But in this image here, the S&P 500 is divided with the price of gold. Not to get into it too much on detail, but I want you to see the trend, the channel that builds. Now, this goes all the way back to the Great Depression. This basically shows areas of secular bull markets in the market and secular bear markets. And if you've noticed, after the Great Depression, we had a 24-year secular bull market up until, gosh, I was late 60s, when I ended up going to war again. And then we had a secular bear market for a while, which came down for 13 years. Then we have a secular bull market after that, after the Iran hostage in 1980. We come off the gold standard, and we have a secular bull market for 20 years. What I want you to catch, of course, then we've come down since 08. We know we've had, or 9/11 basically. Since 9/11, we've been back into secular bear market territory, and that was 11 years. We have now, with the trillions and trillions of printed money, have now entered into secular bull market, which means the market should be jamming. Life should be good. But there's one catch. I have to take a quick break, and then I'm going to show you that catch, and you're not going to want to miss it. Be right back.
Buying power. What does it mean to you and your family? Have you noticed the prices of everything we buy are rising? Goods and services are becoming more expensive, and the money you work so hard for buys less and less and less. If you saved $250,000 in cash in the 1960s, that cash today would be worth approximately the same, $250,000. Yet does it have the same buying power today? No, not even close. Now take that same $250,000 from the 60s saved in silver instead of cash. Today, it would be worth a staggering $4.25 million. Now that's buying power. Protect and preserve your buying power now by rolling over a portion of your IRA into a silver IRA. Use the power of constitutional money silver to protect your standard of living in retirement and maintain the quality of life you are hoping for. The paper dollar you are saving has tremendous challenges ahead, so don't delay. Call Cornerstone Asset Metals now at 888-747-3309. Don't give away your hard-earned savings any longer. Be diversified. Get protected today.
Welcome back. So now in this image, let's put this image back up one more time, Nick, if we can. In this secular bull market, secular bear market chart. Now this is in comparison to gold, mind you. Gold's always a measure, folks. But if you've noticed the bear markets and bulls, what I want you to see since the 30s, if you've noticed as the bear market comes down, it goes back up to start the secular bull market again. Have you noticed both times they've had massive corrections back down before the bull market continued? You notice that? All the way back on the left, look in the middle. You notice in the middle, from 1970, we crashed down. We came right back up, 79, 80, had a big bull run, but then it crashed all the way through the trend line barrier. Then we started the 20-plus years of secular bear. Back way up to 2008, and we crashed. We all know that the last 8 years or so. Now, if you notice at the bottom, we hit the trend line, and we bounced back up. We're right in the middle. I contend, now I could be wrong, but I contend, based on all the data I see, we are going into a cyclical bear market where this market is going back down to that trend line. It could easily blow through that trend line like it did in '08 because the data is stacked globally, not just because. We've added way too much stimulus, way too much created fake capital. My guess is the secular bear market we're getting ready to come into could be fierce, 50, 60%, and then it continues to the secular bull market, and we will continue into the expansion way beyond probably to 2025, 2030. So the timing is right. Money has already been shown to be moving out, and let's get on and do that. But that chart was huge because it gave you that vision. Now, if I'm wrong and we don't have a bear market cyclical and it keeps going, fine. But did you notice that each time over the last 80 years, 90 years, we've had that big cyclical bear market in between those bulls, and then it shifted. In that cyclical bear market, folks, gold prices shot up. Silver prices shot up. Commodity prices went up. And then they shift back out into the secular bear market, which would be your stocks. So many of you have just gotten to break even, maybe be in some profit since 2008. Unfortunately, your buying power is not there anymore because since 2008, this isn't buying the same. And silver has been flat, and the commodity's been flat ever since, gosh, last few years, 4 or 5 years, because they've been booming through the stock market in paper. And yet the gains they've made in those markets will be nothing compared to what's going to happen when the commodities unleash. So you have to keep it in perspective. See, the Chinese see this, and they know the globe is getting ready to go through this reset alignment, a cyclical bear market inside the secular bull market. But look at this and why I feel real weary about America. This is United States standing out amongst advanced economies. The last since '08, a lot of countries went through just basically budgeting. They cut welfare, they slashed the money they were spending, and Greece being some of them did the best job of cutting. Now, other people are suffering and committing suicide, but the point is these countries all have basically a debt to GDP ratio that went down, decreasing. They got a better budget. They budgeted better for their family. The United States on the right, if you notice in the red, is the only nation that's got an extremely worse scenario on the top chart, and on the bottom, the purple color. That's the United States. And this comes from the International Monetary Fund, folks. Right out of them. The United States is the only one blowing up their debt to income, meaning we're becoming poorer and poorer and more desperate as a nation. That's very important and why the Chinese know this is coming. Why is it that we're under this circumstance? We are living, if you've noticed what our dollar bills say and what's behind me and what's in this picture, Federal Reserve note. It's a slave instrument. This is a spiritual issue, folks. We are being taken down on our buying power. We're losing our ability to be functional with what we're buying. Just look at the millennials. Look at how many people, 40, 50% that are tapping into retirement accounts already, that don't even have a retirement account established. And those that do are a lot in wrong investments. They're not hedged properly. And the Chinese know this, and they know America's challenged. Now, this is what blows me away more than anything. They're planning by establishing dominance with currency and trade, which is what runs the world, folks, next to the military. But they see the future challenges to America. And when you got people on the left side of our politics so adamant about socialism, socialism will destroy the last remaining of the American dream, and that's a fact. And yet we have the culture thinking it's okay. Look at this image. This is so staggering it's not even funny. Without even the details, just look at the red line. If something isn't broken in the economy after 2008, I don't know what is. All the way back since we've come off the gold standard of 1970, America always had up and downs, but we continued to rise in the GDP minus the federal debt relationship. How much we produce versus how much debt we have. But you notice since 2008, we not only collapsed below zero, we can't get up, folks. We can't get up. The economy is destroyed. This chart is so in your face telling you we haven't fixed it. What you think is going on isn't real. And what your advisors know, they don't know, unfortunately. So just keep it in perspective that there's some real intangible happening, and being diversified is paramount in this day and age. And we're going to continue. Wait till you see where the money's really flowing from the markets to where, and we'll do that next week. So until then, God bless each and every one of you. And I pray the fire of the Holy Spirit be through you now in Jesus Christ's name, that your eyes and ears be open to truth. Until next week.